The Australia Consortium for In-Country Indonesian Studies, or ACICIS, is Australia's flagship study program in Indonesia. The LPP program provides an opportunity for Australian law students to work closely with Indonesian community groups, NGOs, and law firms to cultivate a deeper understanding of the legal issues in contemporary Indonesian society. The program consists of a 2-week intensive language program in Bahasa Indonesia, which is then followed by a 4-week placement program.
For my 4-week placement, I was put with an organization called Impartial in Jakarta. They're a human rights research body, and they conduct a lot of policy research for advocacy for legislative change in Indonesia. They do a lot of work on 5 main issues relating to human rights in some regard, such as the abolition of the death penalty and military sector reform. So my role while I was there was to conduct research and complete a paper for the organization on the freedom of association. This was largely focused on recent laws passed by the government, which allowed it to disband Indonesian organizations without legal process. So I completed a study looking at the extent of the protection of freedom of association in Indonesia and compared that with the situation in Australia. Impartial, on the whole, tends to produce a lot of studies and papers on topics like this. They also occasionally represent parties in court or argue their own cases. For example, they challenged legislation in the Constitutional Court on a few cases recently, and they've represented inmates on death row in the Supreme Court. Since the majority of their work is research-based, their impact in Indonesia is very broad as opposed to individual impacts on the community locally. Sometimes they will hear cases and they will hear and assist individuals who are victims of rights abuses, such as victims of land grabbing by the military, which has happened a lot recently. And they sometimes take action on these, but generally they're focused on institutional and legislative change with very far-reaching effects.
I undertook my placement at LTKL, an NGO focused on sustainability in Indonesia. I had 2 mentors, Riandi and Desrico, and I was required to write a policy brief on green investment, which would be presented on the last day. I also attended with LTKL a 2-day masterclass, seminars, and a field trip. The NGO had a flexible work arrangement, so many employees worked from home or arrived late to work. Every day I would arrive at around 11 as traffic was bad in the mornings, and if I showed up any earlier, no one would be in the office. I worked with another intern from America, and together we did research for LTKL. I had a great experience bonding with all of the other employees and learning more about Indonesia's environmental issues and ordering GoFood with the employees. LTKL impacts the community through allowing the districts to collaborate, conference, and discuss the main commodities for the region. They organise brainstorming activities and provide relevant research on sustainability facts and projects. Therefore, the districts can learn from these. This allows the districts to understand techniques of other districts and why sustainability is vital to Indonesia's growth. The skills I've developed in the placement was confidence. Being in an office where most people didn't speak English was difficult at first. However, I was still able to ask them questions and build relationships with colleagues. I also picked up the skill of simple Indonesian, which proved very useful in Jakarta, where English is not the dominant language, which is useful for my future career if I want to come back to Indonesia.
I undertook my placement at AYMP, which is a corporate law firm. Much of AYMP's clients are businesses of various sizes. My role in AYMP was to assist junior lawyers and associates, and this could involve me reviewing corporate documents such as contracts or conducting research on Indonesian law. AYMP is one of the premier law firms in Indonesia, and their impact can be seen in Indonesia's business sector, as AYMP does a lot with helping foreign investors establish themselves in Indonesia and navigate through its complex regulatory environment. One of the key skills that I really improved on throughout the program was being able to work effectively with others who hold different views than me and being able to manage uncertainty in a professional setting. I think that improving on my ability to work effectively with people who hold different views is important for both my current professional role and my future profession. The way I see it is that there is no guarantee that I will work with people who have the same views as me, and as such, For me to be able to carry out my role, I need to have the skills and experience required to effectively mediate these differences and manage the potential conflicts that may occur. Secondly, being able to adapt and effectively operate in uncertain situations is extremely important, as uncertainty is often the rule rather than the exception in the day-to-day life of a professional.